Welcome to It's Not Your Fault. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Kim Power-Stilson, with Steve Shenk, the author of It's Not Your Fault, and Lexi, of course, is the chairman of the board who's joined us today. Now, Steve, as you know, if you've watched any of these shows on Roku Box, Ustream, or on Facebook, that Steve Shenk has written this book that is a different kind of book. It's Not Your Fault. And today our topic is going to be about being fearless. There's so many people out there suffering. My own kids have fears about certain things, from having a monster under their bed to worrying about if they're going to get the grade they want or the date they want. Being fearless is a concept that people, I'm sure, would have trouble imagining what that would really be like. But Steve knows. Well,
think about this. Every single fear that we have is connected with a dependency that's threatened. Okay? If you're afraid of losing your life, what's a dependency? You're pretty dependent on having a life. If you're afraid of losing a relationship, the dependency is the need to be loved and cared for by that individual. The folks that are standing out with a cardboard sign that says any change will help are fearing not having their next meal. We're all dealing with a whole bunch of fears all the way around the clock, and the fact is that there's one way to deal with a fear. Find out what dependency is connected to and eliminate it. Become independent. And so it's fascinating. That goes along very closely with the concept that the path to success is failure. Let's see. What's a fear do? It creates a need, a stronger and stronger and stronger need to solve a problem. Okay? There's an interesting little plaque that I've got in my office. It says, "Necessity is the mother of invention, but terror is the father of pure inspiration." You see, when people if people have it too good, like, you know, the rich little kid that had the silver spoon in her mouth, and she, you know, we all know where Paris is most of the time, but we also know where Berlin is and other things like that. I don't want to use any names to offend anybody, but the fact is that these young people that don't have to do anything, never in a situation where they have to achieve. And it's just like if a guy has a young man that wants to go lift weights and build himself up, and the father doesn't want the kid to have to go through any misery at all, so he goes down to the weight room when the kid's down there, and he says, "Oh, wait, don't pick that up," and he goes out and lifts that weight for the kid, and he says, "What time are you going to be here tomorrow?" "At 5 o'clock." "Okay, I'll be here." And then he goes and lifts the weight. What good does it do? We have parents doing a lot of that same stuff.
Yeah, their homework.
All the time.
Yeah,
and
right.
What good does it do? You see?
They don't build their own muscle.
That's right. And you see, everyone is perfect. Everyone is perfect. Some people say, well, I've got this problem or I've got that problem, and so I need help with this. And so I wanted to be dependent. I wanted to be dependent. And then I can fear the fact that the government is going to take the support away, or that mom and dad are going to take the support away, or I get offended that they do take it away. It keeps going on and on and on. But the fact is that if we have failure and a need is not being created, the reason that that's valuable is because it creates motivation to fix it, to do something about it. So here's the answer. If you have a fear or an anxiety, fix it. Well, if I'm standing there with a cardboard sign that says any loose change will help, how do you fix it? Get the book. Because in that book, it tells you how to not have to be afraid of things, but you set an objective and a goal, and the universe will take care of your fears if you do the things that you need to do. But let's take an example. Let's say a child is born with a clubfoot in one eye. Okay? That's a heck of a crummy deal. Yeah. Now, that kid can either say, "Oh, I've only got a clubfoot and one lousy eye, and everybody else has an advantage." I'm telling you right now that child possibly has an advantage over every other child this born normally, because he has something to struggle with and deal with. He has a weight to lift with that muscle. Okay? Now, this muscle right here, under this jacket, is that a perfect muscle? Is it? That muscle is, I got a perfect muscle right there. Everybody out there is saying, yeah, well, it's not as developed as some of the guys that I see on TV and all that kind of stuff. That's not the point. As a muscle goes, that's a perfect muscle. Okay? It can't be any more perfect than to be a muscle. Now, is it developed as far as it can possibly be? Of course not. When I was 21 years old, it was pretty good. But right now, it's not. But it has the potential of being all it can be right now, and it can be developed even more. Let's take the guy with the club foot and the one eye. Let's say his name is Jim, okay? Jim is perfect. He is a perfect Jim. He's all Jim can be. He doesn't have everything that Tom and Pete and Sam do, but he is Jim. That's what he's got to work with. Now, if he develops to become, and he overcomes those weaknesses, the one fellow that was on the Olympics that didn't have any legs, that was running on springs, for crying out loud. Well, there are a lot of people out there with no legs, just like that guy, that are physically not very fit. They're sitting in their wheelchairs saying, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I think I'll eat a worm. Big ones, little ones, fat ones, skinny ones, all this kind of stuff that people do when they feel sorry for themselves. But that guy took it as a challenge. Now let's go back to Jim. Jim has a club foot and one eye. Great! Wonderful! I have some weaknesses and problems. As a salesman, I didn't do any good at having doors slammed in my face when I was knocking on doors, so I had to work and struggle and strain and starve until I figured out how to never have anybody slam a door in my face. And so that when my presentation came on, I went up to the door, or I had the appointment, I was able to learn to deal with my weaknesses. Some people have physical weaknesses. Some people have mental weaknesses. Doesn't matter. The message is very clear that whatever that person is, it's exactly a perfect whoever they are. Jim is a perfect Jim. Now, the beautiful thing is, he's only got one eye. What are you going to do about it, Jim? Okay? What are you going to do about that club foot? Great. Do you want to accomplish whatever you want to achieve? Yeah. You can set your goals, visualize it, never think about, oh, I got this club foot and I only got one eye. How am I going to ever do that? No. You set the objective and the goal just like every other human being that wants to accomplish something, and never think how. Never think how. Only think of the objective. And the universe will give you the how. The universe gave that guy with no legs springs, for crying out loud. Who would ever think of that? He said, well, I don't like this business of having no legs. I want to be able to run like those guys. Now, what would you give odds of a guy that had lost both of his legs running in the Olympics? Come on, give me the odds. Well, okay, let's talk about Jim with a club foot and one eye. What odds would you give him? Well, it's not your choice. It's the odds that he gives himself. He's a perfect Jim, and he's what he is the hand that he's been dealt. He can look at somebody else and he can say what he doesn't have, but then the most phenomenal concept that ever has been created around the concept of creating goals is something called gratitude. What Jim sits down and does is the exact same thing that I do with this muscle. I am grateful for this perfect muscle, and I'm going to do with it. I'm going to do with it all that I can do and develop that. Jim can say, I am grateful for the fact that I've got one eye.
That's
for crying
true,
out loud.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the fact that I've got one good foot and one that I can hobble on.
That's true.
Now,
Very
what am I
humbling.
going to do with it? How am I going to be the most perfect Jim that I can be? Set a goal, Jim. You want to climb Mount Everest? Great. You look with one eye and you climb with your good foot and you stump along with the other. You'll figure it out. And the beautiful thing is, you can figure it out. If you understand, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You can take whatever situation you've got, and if you look at people that have it too good. My daddy, when he was 96 years old, just before he died, looked at our country, and it's going down the tubes, not from the fact that we've got goofy politicians. It's going down the tubes from the fact that we've got people that don't look in the mirror in the morning and say to themselves, if it is to be, it's up to me. It's not up to my mom, my dad, because they can't do anything for you anyway. Sure. All the enablement in the world can't do anything for you, because it's like the kid that has his dad go down and lift the weights for him. Well, he got the weights lifted, or he got the homework done, or he got the term paper written. Did he learn anything?
No,
Did
his dad will
did his dad allow him to go ahead and get an F because the lazy little stinker didn't do what he needed to do, and let him struggle with it? And hey, you ain't going to graduate. It's okay. You want to fall on your butt? It's perfectly all right. And so, what happens with Jim? Every one of us, we're dealing with problems. Every one of you sitting out there has something that's bugging you, a fear that you've got, something that you wish you could have that you don't have. It's your problem. But the beautiful thing is, it's your problem. Because failure is the path to success. If everything was going exactly the way you'd like to have it go, you had all the money you want, you live in the house you want, you got the boat you want, you got the wife you want, the husband you want, you've got everything perfect, what reason would there be for you to stop and do the two things that people avoid at all costs? Number one, to think, and to number two, decide and fix it. If you got nothing to fix, you know when the astronauts go up into the shuttle, they can't stay up there too long, because when they come back down, all of their organs don't work right, their circulations don't work right, because they need resistance, they need gravity in order to even function as a human being. If I let that muscle sit there, at one point in time I had an operation, I was in the hospital, and they tied my hand down because I was under sedation, and they had tied my arm in one place for a long period of time. It literally ached by the time they let it loose. If we don't do what we're meant to do, solve problems, fix things, fight against resistance, build against, if I let that arm sit there, that muscle's still going to be a perfect muscle. But is it going to be in as good a shape as it is today? No, it's going to atrophy. Our brains atrophy if we don't use them. If you don't use it, you lose it. So, every one of us have written into our book of life before we came here. Now, this is my own personal belief. I can prove it, of course, as I can everything that I tell you, Kim. But anyway, every one of us have written into our book of life before we came here the difficulties and the problems that we have. Not so that we can say, oh, bad things happen to good people. It's so miserable. How come this keeps happening to me? Well, guess what? It's going down to the weight room, and do you want to lift a 3-pound weight and that you can do this forever? Or do you want to knock 35 pounds on that sucker so you can only do maybe 3 or 4 curls until you get to where you can do more, and then you increase the weight? The fact is that every single one of us have written into our book of life all these challenges, whether it's with relationships, it might be like Jim where they have actual physical, visible stuff, but trust me, every single one of you that's looking at every single other of you, can do just like I did when I was singing in concerts, in competitions in high school. I'd sit there, there'd be 5 kids sitting there getting ready to sing. The judges were sitting over there, and I'd look at those other 4 kids and I'd think, gee, they're not nervous. They're not worried. They don't have their guts grinding and feel like they could puke on the floor. And when I got done, I'd get up there and I'd sing my little thing, and I'd go out, and these kids would come out afterwards after they sang their little thing, and they'd say, man, Steve, this doesn't bother you at all, do you? Does it? This doesn't, it's cool. Well, I'll guarantee you, you look at any other human being right now on this planet, and they have stuff going through their brain. You might see that some of them have physical disabilities, but everyone have a brain disability because they're dealing with challenges, frustrations with relationships, what they can do, their failures, their anxieties, their stress. If they're not alive. But the beautiful thing is, instead of looking at those as reasons to fail, they are reasons to succeed, and here's how you do it. First of all, you are grateful for everything that's good that you see. If you can learn that these things work for you, you will ultimately be grateful for these things. But then you look at that fear, that anxiety. All of the anxieties and stresses that you go through are a form of fear, and they're all connected with some dependency that you have that is being threatened. Whether it's a relationship or whether it's success or whether it's whatever you're dealing with, it's all a fear connected with a dependency. Look at that dependency, and then you write down the result that you want. Never ask yourself, how am I going to do this? If you are tempted to ask yourself, how will I accomplish this objective that I want that will eliminate that fear and that dependency and make me independent of that fear, if you start to ask yourself, but I don't know how to do it, stop immediately and relist all of the gratitudes that you have connected with that area in your life. If I got this muffin top that I think is embarrassing to me, this gut, and it's causing me a problem, what am I grateful for? I got 2 good arms. I'm not like Jim. I got 2 good feet. And I've got other things that are going for me. List all the things that are going for you, and then focus only on your objective, only on the vision of what you choose to have in your life that will eliminate the dependency and the fear connected with it, and state that every morning, every night, see it happen. Never allow yourself to ask how. And guess what? Every single failure, every single challenge will become just like that kid that takes the weights away from his dad that's trying to enable him, or make him into an enablee. And he says, I'd rather do it myself. I don't know if you remember the ads way back 100 years ago, probably even before you were born, some mother was coming in and doing something for this gal, and she said, Mother, I'd rather do it myself. That was part of their ad.
Wow.
Well, very simply,
nice.
Every one of you that has a challenge that somebody's coming and say, oh, let me help you, let me do that for you. Listen to what I've said and realize that that challenge, that failure, that potential failure, that fear is actually a strengthening possibility, just like the weights on the floor that you can pick up and you can strengthen that muscle, and you add more weight, and pretty soon you're buff, you're exactly what you want to be, you're thin, you're successful, you're prosperous, you're living in the home you want. You can throw away your cardboard sign that says loose change, because every person that stops by and gives you a $20 bill when you're standing there on the stinking street corner with that cardboard sign is enabling you and weakening you so that you'll stand there again tomorrow. And what the heck are you going to do if that $20 bill gets you through tonight? What are you going to do tomorrow? You're going to beg for another dadgum $20 bill. Go get your own stinking $20 bill and live in the house you'd like to live in. And don't embarrass yourself and look at your own self-image at being a broke, dependent person on someone else's charity.
Be fearless.
Be fearless. Be fearless. And I'm not saying anything bad about the people that are out there.
Right.
But
if they knew this and they applied this, they could have a different life.
Absolutely.
We all could have better lives.
Absolutely. Look at that 20 belt. The next time somebody stops, and I don't think many people give those folks that are holding those cardboard signs $20 bills. But if somebody
I would give them something, though.
If somebody does, if you're watching that, if you're standing there with that cardboard sign and somebody gives you a $20 bill, think to yourself, please, I would rather have nobody give me anything for one day so I get sick of this thing and I say, I'm going to do something else. And if you don't know what to do, write down what you want and buy the daggum book. Take the $20 plus a couple other donations for that day. Buy the book, get off the street, and pretty soon you'll be sitting talking to people on a talk show and you can say,
it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.